of the Ninth House of Representatives. It has been the honor of my life to serve our beloved country from this honorable house. I am profoundly grateful to the people of Surulere 1 Federal Constituency for allowing me to represent them for the last 20 years. I am grateful to you. I am grateful to you, my dear colleagues, for the honor and privilege of serving as Speaker of the Ninth House of Representatives for the last 4 years. All glory belongs to the Almighty God, who ordains our destinies and guides our path. In the years since I first stepped into the hallowed chamber, the House of Representatives has changed profoundly, just as our country has changed as well. Yet in all that time, I have not witnessed change on a scale and with such speed as has been the case in the last 4 years. We have lived through a global pandemic that nobody anywhere saw coming. We have governed at a time of global crisis and relentless transformations to the global economy. We have seen our nation's politics come of age with a new generation of young people determined to have a seat at the table and prepared to fight for it, whatever the cost. Just in the last few days, we have seen the end of a subsidy regime that has distorted the energy market in our country for over 30 years. When change happens at this scale and with such an unrelenting pace, it creates challenges and opportunities almost in equal measure. Over the last 4 years, this House of Representatives has worked to ensure that our country can overcome those challenges and take advantage of the moment to achieve economic, social, and political transformations that benefit all of the Nigerian people. We elevated the debates in the House of Representatives and made this chamber the arena for informed exchange about Nigeria's future and the welfare of our nation's people. We have left our mark in every sector of our national life and positively impacted people's lives across our country. We introduced discipline into the appropriations process by implementing a January to December budget cycle that ended the policy instability and economic uncertainty of the previous irregular budget cycles. We reformed the oversight process to ensure greater collaboration between the arms of government. We made it easier for citizens to access details of budget expenditures so that they too can be part of the process of ensuring accountability in the administration of public funds. We did not yield our constitutional obligation to ensure faithful compliance with the letter and spirit of the Appropriation Act by the ministries, departments, and agencies of government. While the strategic importance of the oil and gas sector to Nigeria's socioeconomic well-being has long been apparent, successive administrations failed to put in place a functional statutory regime to allow that sector to function optimally. We ended that legacy of lethargy with the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act, with the Deep Offshore and Inland Basic Production Sharing Contracts Act. We went even further to put the sector on the right footing. Now, these statutory reforms rightfully ought to have happened a long time ago. Now, we must ensure that the reforms contained in these acts are dutifully implemented as part of a broader energy policy suited to the realities of technological advancements and the evolving demands of the global energy market. We passed the Police Act to change the nature of relations between the police and citizens in our country and to ensure that police reforms or police officers who fall short of their responsibilities can be quickly held accountable. The Act expressly prohibits police officers from arresting citizens for civil wrongs, imposes an obligation on the police to inform citizens of their rights at the point of arrest, and mandates the police to ensure that persons arrested have access to their families and legal representations. In addition, the Act established the Police Complaints Units as a statutory organ accessible to the public to report police misconduct and empowered to initiate action when such reports are received. These reforms did not end police misbehavior in our country. Soon enough, there was a national reckoning. We responded by working with the Nigerian Bar Association to establish a new framework of accountability to hold erring members of the police force to account for their conduct in performance of their duties and compel the Nigerian police to take responsibility for the failures of training and discipline that leads to such wrongful act. And we approved the sum of 500 million naira through the National Human Rights Commission to compensate victims of police brutality nationwide. I sincerely hope that the work of police reform will continue in the House of Representatives until we achieve a system of policing that meets our nation's needs and reflects the best of us. When in March 2020, the COVID-19 virus entered our shores, we became bound with the rest of the world in experiencing a tragic disruption to our economic, political, and social lives, unlike anything we have ever witnessed. This House of Representatives responded by taking active measures to protect the Nigerian people, including those who work here in the National Assembly. We passed the Emergency Economic Stimulus Bill to grant companies a rebate on companies' income tax, suspend import duties on medicines, medical equipment, personnel protective equipment, and other essential medical materials, and deferred mortgage obligations to residential mortgages by contributors to the National Housing Fund. We also passed the Emergency Relief and Assistance Bill to provide a limited salary guarantee for low-income permanent employees of companies registered and operating in Nigeria. Relieve legal consumers of electricity in Nigeria of the burden of electricity charges for a limited period and suspend for a fixed period the implementation of the value-added tax provisions of the Finance Act 2020. Whilst these legislations did not pass in the Senate and never became law, they provided the framework for the federal government's policy response to the pandemic, as the policy ideas contained therein were adopted and variously implemented through executive orders and subsequent legislations. Honorable colleagues, we worked to establish under emergency conditions a fully functioning care facility in the Federal Capital Territory under the management of the National Center for Disease Control, NCDC. We intervened to prevent potentially devastating strike action by doctors and ensure that medical professionals at the fore of our response to the pandemic were remunerated correctly and provided the allowances due to them. We reviewed the statutory framework for managing infectious disease outbreaks and proposed the Infectious Disease Bill to reform an area of our laws that hadn't been examined for a century. In an act of service, for which I remain proud and thankful, members of this House volunteered their salaries to the COVID Relief Fund to support the needs of the most vulnerable in our society. The legislative legacy of the 9th House of Representatives includes the Companies and Allied Matters Act and the Nigerian Startup Act, two critical legislations aimed at changing the way we do business in Nigeria by streamlining regulations, reducing red tape, and setting the conditions for the private sector to innovate, thrive, and grow. Our legacy also includes the comprehensive electoral reforms in the Electoral Act that have changed forever, for good, the way we conduct elections in Nigeria. While we recognize the need to continue to work to improve election management in Nigeria, we must acknowledge the vast improvements that have happened since the return of democracy. And we take pride in our contribution to those improvements over the last 4 years. Through the constitutional review process, the House of Representatives sought to restructure our government to make it more effective, reorganize and our politics to make it more inclusive, and enshrine efficient mechanisms for holding the institutions of state to account and put an end to the debilitating conflicts that even now continue to tear our nation apart. For this, I want to particularly thank the Deputy Speaker of the House for spearheading and chairing the Committee on Constitutional Review. We made an audacious attempt to create a constitution that addresses once and for all the fundamental issues that distract from nation building. The constitutional amendments we enacted devolved power and responsibilities over critical areas of our national life in an effort to spur innovation and healthy competition at subnational level. By our joint effort, we achieved financial independence for state houses of assembly and state judiciary, granting greater autonomy to these arms of government in line with democratic best practice. To succeed in our shared ambition of building a prosperous and peaceful country, we must do everything within our power to ensure that our daughters and those yet to be born can grow up in a more open, more equal society than their mothers did. Unfortunately, we did not succeed in removing some of the constitutional barriers that have long stood in the way of women's full and unhindered participation in the politics, governance, and economy of our nation. This issue must continue to be at the fore of our national conversations. I hope the 10th Assembly will take up the mantle and do better than we did. Beyond legislative interventions, the 9th House of Representatives will be remembered for our efforts to change how we do the business of Parliament, most notably for introducing information technology tools through the e-Parliament project and establish the National Assembly Library Trust Fund. The National Assembly Library Trust Fund will ensure that the National Assembly is operationally suited to meet the needs of the Nigerian people by providing modern library and research infrastructure, training and capacity development for legislators and aides, and operating as a resource center for the legislature and all who have any interest in legislative endeavors. This 9th House will, with unwavering courage and determination, defended the rights and dignity of the Nigerian people abroad from every attempt to dehumanize and victimize our people. Our interventions on behalf of Nigerians in China during the pandemic put an end to the recurrent incidents of abuse, just as our efforts on behalf of the Nigerians in South Africa and Ghana caused the governments of those nations to step up action to protect the lives and property of our citizens in those countries.